Oh, blessings and welcome, everyone. I'm always here a little bit early on Thursdays when I do the 4D Trinity live stream just to get that juices rolling. We're just a minute early before I hop on here with Instagram as well. And I'm so grateful for this YouTube community. I'm so grateful for all that we share. Thank you for supporting, subscribing, hitting the bell, and all that stuff. So thank you again, and blessings and welcome. Today, our topic, I'm so very, very excited. I'm literally, I was nervous earlier and I haven't been nervous in so very long. So it's going to be a good one. I have a good feeling about all of this. Okay. So now where are we? It's 11. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to hop on. Oh, very exciting. Blessings and welcome, everyone. I am Tuesday May Thomas, and this is my weekly live stream for the Trinity. It is here that we quest the divine nature of our nature, of that divine Trinity of mind and body with spirit. And it is when that divine alignment takes place that we have access. Access is granted into the domain of the now. And so welcome and blessings, and thank you for being here. I'm so very grateful. And today's topic, I'm telling you, I was just telling the folks on YouTube here that I'm actually nervous. Hey, blessings and welcome. I've been feeling ever since I woke up this juiciness. Are you feeling it? I don't know if it's if it's about today's show, if it's whatever, our collective energy combined, right? So I think we're just going to get right into it. Let me have a sip of water. I'm so very excited, and I have so many notes for us today. Oh, blessings and thank you. Let me put the glasses on. It's Reiki, the energy, girl. Woo, woo, woo. How are you, sister? I was thinking about you the other day. I'm going to be sending you a little email here shortly. Blessings, mystic artifacts. Oh, thank you everyone for hopping on. So like I said, we are going to get right into it. I have tons of notes and I'm super excited to share this with you because time has been such a powerful aspect of my healing, understanding the power of time, understanding it as a tool that we can use, that we can access to elevate our process, to elevate and enliven our experience of being here. And as we learn to master time as well as space, we come into this divine union that is outside of time. And time is cool, right? We can use time. The thing is, when time uses us, when we're stuck in the past, when we're stuck in the future, right? And we learn how to access, though, the gateway of the present to gain entry into the now. And that's where the juiciness, that's where the timeline shifts really start to happen on a different level. Yet for now, but we'll keep it in tune with time. So let's begin. Okay, so the little meme that I shared at the beginning, we're talking about the what, the why, and the how, right? Like, why should you even care? Why should you even care about timelines? So I have some notes here. What is a timeline? So metaphysically speaking, it's a storehouse of collective memory frames. So we think, oh, what's going on here? We think about each moment in time being a snapshot, a pixelation, if you will, of a memory. Okay. It's a pixel of memory infused with our 5 sense perception. So if you think about every moment you've ever experienced has how you have perceived and experienced that moment in time, that is how it will be embossed upon. So your perceptions of whatever has happened to you, right? Or whatever you have made happen, you are placing your experience, your specific and unique perception, you are embossing it onto that pixelation of time. Okay. So it is time. What is time? A timeline, again, it is a storehouse of memory embossed with our 5 sensory perceptual lenses of experience, right? The memory that's like stamped onto each moment. Why, right? Why should we learn about timelines? Well, they create the simulation you experience. If you're not happy in the simulation you're experiencing here in the world or in the matrix, right? Then this is where time has a hold on us. And this is the exact point of entry where we can learn to harness the power of time by way of our thought and our word about what we think time is regarding the memories we hold and that we're connected to, so that we can create the alchemy to change it all. So timelines create the simulation you experience. They hold you in vibrational alignment with your conscious and subconscious mind. So we think about the thoughts that we're very aware of, that we have on a continuing basis. And we think about the thoughts that we don't know are there, right? The unconscious, subconscious aspects of self that are operating as a constant. And as we move into becoming enlightened, right? As we move into awakening our awareness, what begins to happen is we begin to realize that there's some deeper root systems of belief, of pain, of pattern, of trauma, of something that has marked our timeline, our experience of time in this body, in this life. So this is why it's important to understand what a timeline even is, because they are what are creating your experience. And you can choose your timelines, right? And we unconsciously choose them, and we can consciously choose them just the same. Our subconscious is continually at work choosing timelines on our behalf. It is choosing for us. And it's when we go into those deeper realms of self and learn how to mindfully manage our perception of time that things begin to shapeshift and change. So what you think is right until you realize you want to change. So what you think is right, what do you think is right? Everything in your experience right now, you have agreed to. Everything in your experience right now, whether you see it as a positive, a negative, somehow is matching you vibrationally. Maybe it's the broken car. Maybe it's the late check. Maybe it's the perfect health and healing, the happiness, the beautiful love relationship you're in. It can have whatever polarity you want to assign to it. Yet these are our experiences, and we are having the experience of certain timelines based on where our vibrational resonance is at. And the vibrational resonance of where we are at is rooted in the thoughts we think, the words we speak, the memory that walks with us, the memory of all time and space of our experience and how it walks with us. So how do we change timelines? Have you ever experienced a timeline shift? Well, we'll get into that in a little bit, but we can imagine, and we're going to talk about some lists of these things so we can think about this in a different way. On a very 3D level, diet and exercise, right? All of a sudden, right? Maybe you want to lose 10 pounds. You're here on one timeline and you're thinking, oh, I really want to shapeshift my body. I really want to get into better health. I really want to change this about myself. You lose 10 pounds, all of a sudden you're in a different timeline, literally, right? We know we can work with healing. We can work with herbs. We can work with different modalities to create the correct conditions whereby we can begin to perceive and see things differently about the past. So we know affirmations, healing practices, meditation, healing the past ultimately so that it can be liberated from you and you can be liberated from it. So again, it's all about the frequency match, right? And understanding that until we decide to change our minds about things, things will be what they are. And it's in the changing of our minds about things that we can learn to master our experience of time. Some of us may feel very, very bogged down by the past and feel that we are a victim, right? And what's happening, though, is there's a collective awakening in the heart. And so all of those old timelines that had one point kept you bound, kept you gravitationally rooted in this experience of a matrix, of a simulation here in the world, keep the world real for you. And it's until we learn how to heal those parts of ourselves that keep us anchored and rooted in the past or stressed out and projecting into the future, until we learn how to master the way we perceive our experience of time. That's when things begin to shift. That's when we have a timeline shift, when you literally begin to experience new people, places, and things within yourself, new thoughts, new healing, new health, new vitality, less jealousy, less judgments, etc. There's so many different ways, right, that this can be augmented to change our reality, from the reality with the small r to the reality with the big R. Thank you for hopping on, everyone. Blessings and welcome. So why should you care? You eventually will have no mind about time. So really, you don't have to care, right? You eventually will have no mind about time and will eventually master your time and space, which means being a master of your word and a master of your thought, because these are the root anchors that generate the vibrational frequencies that we walk with, which cultivate and create the simulation that we're in. So for instance, the thoughts you think cast out of your body, mind, lines, energy waves, grids, and they connect us to the greater grid matrix that contains the collective mind. What you put out, you receive back multiplied by way of the grid. And so we know if I'm thinking a certain thought in a certain way, in a certain pattern, it's going to trigger a certain chemistry in my body, which is going to release certain hormones, which is going to create a link for me to perceive then the world through. And it's until I change my mind about how I'm seeing things in the past, about how I might think about things in the future, that then new realities, new opportunities will begin to open up for me. What areas of life hold you a victim, right? So let's think about this a moment. Where are you not showing up? It all comes down to fear of love. So these are the places where we get to think about time and timelines. It's rare that we think about time and timelines when we are when we're doing what we love to do, when we're in our power, when we feel powerful, when we feel grounded and rooted and sort of in alignment with our sense of purpose. And it's only when time, as it seems, becomes a bully to us that we begin to realize where we can shapeshift and change the way we perceive the past, the way we perceive our past experiences, so that we can begin to have a new experience in the now. We understand that those experiences that have happened to us in the past, the ones that have marked our timeline, right, with pain, with trauma, we understand that those markings, until those grievances have been healed, that the subtle or sometimes not so subtle aspects of those marks on our personal timeline will walk with us, and they will mark our aura, they will mark our frequency with their vibration, and in turn call to us a match of what it is we are vibrating at. And so sometimes we can go through several healings and have the experience of like, why is this happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? I went to the healer, I did the salt bath, I burned the candle, etc. Understanding that we're very complex beings. We're complex beings, and there are many different fractal aspects of the self. And because there's so many versions of you that you've been through time and space in this lifetime and even beyond this lifetime, there are so many aspects of self that we get to become aware of and place love there. Blessings and welcome. Right? So we get to change and shapeshift from the inside out, these timelines. And so again, what areas of life do you feel a victim to? What areas of life do you feel bound to? Do you always get jealous in love relationships? Do you always, have trouble paying your rent? Is there an issue where your car is always broken? Is there a health issue that continually comes up? There's places and spaces that call out to us, that seek our attention, and you'll know them because you'll keep bumping into them until you clear them, until you heal those aspects of self that you're walking with on those many levels. Then you begin to release the chains that bind. So we think about time being exclusive, and we think about now being inclusive. Exclusive means it's very specific to one person or one genre, or in this sense, to the I, to me. My perception of time is specific to me, and it has all of the filters of my past history and perceptions to look through in order to assimilate what I'm going to see on the outside and have then as my experience. We create everything. This is really cool. What came to me last night, and I know on the Instagram camera, it shows it backwards, and I've done my best to try to flip the camera for these, and I there's no way to do it. And if you know, tell me. But I know on YouTube, it'll come up the correct way. But we're going to think about this. But even still, if you're on Insta, I want you to think about this with me. We think about the word time, or even just write down the word time, right? If you're just chilling. This is so cool. What is time about? Time is about I. Can you see that? Time is about me. It's about I'm. Right? That's all time is. Your perception of time is about the I that you are. It's about the me that you are. It's about the I am. But it's not really the I am. The I am is the now, right? So it's I'm. But isn't it interesting that we have this T junction at the beginning of time? We have this divine symbol of this T junction. Can you see that? We have the horizon, the top of the capital letter T, the third dimension of experience. And we also have the vertical axis, which is infinite, right? Really. It's not rooted in any time. It is free of time. And it's learning how to use the I and the me within time, that we can then go beyond the threshold of that horizontal line and create that holy cross of the fourth dimension, where we enter the heart center and have an experience of the now. And it's then the potential for us to continue to create the correct conditions to experience now over and over and over again. There's only one moment, and it's happening now. It's happening now. How much of your past is walking with you now? Look at the timelines you're in. Again, look at your health, your finances, your relationships, your friendships, your relations with your family, etc., where you're living, right? There's different timelines. I know for you, 4D Fighting Arts, I was just thinking about you just last night, brother, and I was thinking, look at him and his timelines. You've done some serious timeline shifting. In the last, 6 or 8 months, you've timeline shifted. If you don't mind, I'll share. I know you've shared a little bit about this with your followers too, of a shift of out of a long-term relationship. That's a timeline shift, right? You're living life in a certain way with a partner, and especially if you're living with a partner, that goes for all of us, right? We're in a certain timeline. We're doing things specific to that configuration of the way that we've set up our life. We're no longer with that partner. Now we're in a new timeline. There's a whole new vast array of experiences we have access to outside of that timeline, outside of that relationship. And then from that, haven't you been growing your hair out? I mean, here we have this perfect, this perfect arc Now we got our brother. He's growing his hair out. You're wearing a magic shawl cape. You're becoming a wizard. It's like, talk about timeline shifts, right? Now, these aspects, though, perhaps have always been within you, right? Yet there's a certain alignment of mind and body with spirit. There's a certain shift. Things in your mind, things in your heart had to have shifted in order for you to have now these new experiences. And with each new experience, so now here you are as this, I'm going to just call you a wizard, and I'll put my glasses on. If you want me to say something else, let me know. Okay. But there's this, so what is it leading to, though? Now there's like all these new friends, all these new experiences. You've got this podcast, you've got all these, this, the not-for-profit. There's all of these amazing things that now you're in these new timelines, new people, new experiences, new exchanges. What is he saying here? Yes, integration of other multidimensional selves, elemental, absolutely, right? And now, not that the past is bad or anything, yet when it's time, it's time. So for you, viewers, what aspects of life is it time to shift? What timelines are you going to shift? So again, right? Time, we're going to think about time as being rooted in the aspect of fear. Time is related to past, present, and future. There's the God phone. Hello. Hey, God. Blessings. Yes. God says hi. Thank you, dear God. I would love to read from A Course in Miracles. Ooh, about time. You got it. Thank you. I love you too. God sends love. Blessings. Okay, this is so juicy. Okay, we're going to read about time, but we do have a lot to cover, so we're going to keep going, and we will come into A Course in Miracles here shortly. So what do we have in the notes? Okay, love is now. Love is now. Hey, Lolo! Love is now, right? Which is inclusive, which is coherent, which is unity consciousness, which includes all of creation. Fear is time. It is exclusive. Again, specifically relative. Again, if you're on Instagram, this is going to read backwards. But time, if we break down time, the words, the letters in time, okay, we have the T junction of the T, vertical axis of your spirituality, the horizontal realm of the third dimension. And then we have I, which is all about me. It's I. And then we have M. Oh, yes, it's still about me. I'm. And then we have the full me. It's all about you. Time is all about you. And time is rooted in the past, present, future. And for now, we're going to think about time as being exclusive to me, the I, the M. And we're going to think about it as being a realm of fear, right? Not to polarize it, but just to consider that, how often do we think about the good times? Maybe when we get together with friends and we're like, oh, you remember that? That was so cool. That was so funny, etc. Yet, why is it that those things that really bog us down, those are the aspects that are rooted in those unhealed traumas, those unhealed experiences of the past? Even someone pointing at you and laughing when you were a child, if you don't clear that, right, that could subconsciously fuck with your head for the rest of your life. I mean, that even happened to me. I remember I was 13 years old and someone that I really loved, I had gotten all this new clothing and I was doing a little fashion show for them. And I was young. I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14. And they pointed and they laughed. And I didn't know if they were laughing at my clothes, if they were laughing at the little dance I was doing or what. But I was someone that I really loved. And I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to say anything, but I got hurt. And I remember that energy, that timeline then between myself and that individual for many years, it was tainted. Now I was on a different timeline. For a long period of time, I was on a certain timeline with that individual where everything was perfect. It was just what it was. And then that incident happened. And then that marked my timeline specific to that individual, the relation with that individual, which then that marking stayed with me until I eventually forgave and let it go. And then the timeline was able to realign, and actually things were better than before. I was willing to see things differently. The now, we think about the word now, And we think about, again, the aspects of moving the letters around. Okay. Now, so we know, if we look at the word now, and maybe on Instagram it is backwards. So, so we know we have one, right? In the now, you've won. In the now, you are on. You are turned on. And also, sure, we can say that the now, out of that, and I know this writing maybe is not the fanciest, but that we have no, that we have no, right? Love says no. Even love says no. So let's keep going. So let's think about these aspects, where we can think about what how do timeline shifts look. We think about social media, and we think about, you're scrolling through and you see these pictures of before and after, and maybe it's a couple. Often you see these, oh, this glow up, this is my favorite glow up, and it's this couple, and in one picture they're both, say, 300 pounds, and in the other picture they've lost 100 pounds each or something. It's a different timeline, right? It's a different timeline. I know for my whole life, and I've been very open about this, have experienced, weight gain and weight loss. And each time I've gained weight, I've switched timelines. I've been in a different timeline. It had been, maybe it's a lazy timeline. Maybe it's rooted in unhealed stuff still from the past. Maybe it's my diet, whatever it might be. But there's a shift. There's different clothes now that I'm shopping for. Is a different size. Right? And then I lose the weight, you lose the weight, right? Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden you're shopping in a different way. You're looking at different clothing, right? Even I remember, and it's in my book, The Reiki Apprentice, having so much sexual tension in a negative way throughout my entire life about just being a woman and being in a body as a woman. And that tension was rooted in unhealed aspects of the past. And I was very afraid. I mean, there's no way that I could even sit here and show a little leg or whatever. I mean, and now that aspect is liberated, but there was, for so much of my life, where I was just terrified to really just be in my body and to enjoy it. I was afraid to love it. I didn't know what was in there. All I knew that was in there was pain and trauma of the past. But as I healed that, I remember I had this very powerful healing in Australia. And I remember walking out of the teepee and I was like, boom, chicky, boom. Remember Lulu, those old Marilyn Monroe black and white movies or whatever, and it's like, ooh, she on fire. But I had never, ever felt that in my whole life. And I think that was in 2000, 20 years ago. And I remember thinking, like, this is a whole new timeline. Walking through life of one of fear and shame and trauma in the body, then to heal the fear, the shame, and to be liberated. You have switched timelines. It's a very different experience to be had for you. It's a different way that you are interacting and exchanging with the whole of creation, with all of people, places, and things. We think about smoking and non-smoking, right? There's been times where I've given up smoking, and there's been times where I'm fully smoking. And each one, though, is a different timeline. If I'm smoking tobacco or cigarettes or pot or whatever you do, whatever we all do, right? You got to go to the cigarette store, or you got to go to the pot store. You got to, there's certain people, there's certain energies, there's certain other timelines that you're intertwined with. And there's a certain specificity. There's a very specific right aspect of time and space of framing your experience. Right now, when I stop smoking, then all of a sudden there's a freeing up of energy, and there's a new timeline. Right? I know for me, when I get into those addictive patterns and those habits, and I get into a rut, or I get into those, like, where it's like, oh, the tar body wants to get depressed, and it's tempted to be, beating up on the self, etc. That's a very different timeline. And when we find that strength, right, to change that arc, to shift the way of thinking in the way of love, then we begin to usher in a whole different experience of not only our own vital energy, but of those people, places, and things that are drawn to us as well. So smoking or non-smoking, right? Different timelines. Are you single? Okay, when you're single and you don't want to be in a relationship, that's a very specific timeline. right? That's a very specific timeline. You're going to have certain experiences. All of a sudden, oh, now I want to go out with people. Now I want to have an experience. Now you start flirting, or you start DMing, or you start, whatever it is. That's it. Now you're in a different timeline of experience. Oh, you got engaged. Whoa, well, that's a different timeline. Oh, you're getting married. Oh, you are married. Different timeline. Oh, you're pregnant? Different timeline. You've had the baby. Different timeline. We keep shifting, right? And changing these timelines of experience that we're in. Single and ready to mingle, she says. Girl, you know it. You know it. So many of us are on that same grid right there. Before and after college, like, you're in one frame set, in one timeline. You go to college, or you study, or you do a certain healing course, or whatever it is. You attain a certain level of information, which, depending on what information you're taking in and you're agreeing to, then is going to shift your vibration. You're going to start thinking and speaking in different ways, commingling with new people in new ways, which is going to open up other timelines and create new experiences for us. So really mastering your sense of time, your experience of time is where this is all at. And your experience of time is rooted in past, present, future. Past, present, future does not really exist. What is true is the now. And that's what we preach here. That's what it's all about, is ultimately utilizing all of these tools here in the third dimension to remember that there is more than just this one dimension, to remember that we are multidimensional, and learning to access all of those parts of ourselves, which is what this show is all about, right? It's aligning the mind and the body with spirit. It's learning how to calibrate the mind in a positive way, learning to calibrate the physical in a positive way, learning to, through mastering the mind, master the emotions, which again create the cascade of neurotransmitters and chemicals. Our emotional compass is triggered and set by our mind. I used to be a very jealous person, right? In relationship. But this was all my childhood and my past, and the little girl inside of me, and all this stuff needing attention from her father. There was like all this stuff, but until I went in and did that work to find out that that's what was going on in there, I was just jealous all the time. And until I started really looking at myself and breaking it down and peeling back the layers, then I began to see, like, okay, this is me. This is me. I'm creating this. Let me change this. And it takes a lot of courage, right? When you're used to being in a certain way, in a certain frame, in a certain mindset about certain people, places, or things, especially if you have a heavy grievance against someone. It takes a lot of willingness to change your mind about things. But it's in the changing of your mind about things that then things can change in the presence of you. They can change on behalf of you, on the vibrational tone that you set. Then the world becomes the frequency match to you. You're not matching the world. You're not matching the past any longer. You're telling the matrix, you're telling the simulation, this is how we're having it. So as soon as sometimes it happens overnight, instantly, and sometimes it takes years of work. And sometimes not so much. It just depends, right? And sometimes things we're like, oh, I healed that issue with my father. And then 20 years goes by, and then we're like, oh shit, there's that thing again. Right? It spirals, it ellipses, it comes back around again. But if we do our work, we know each time that the cycles come back again and around. Because we've done our work, we've integrated the healing. When it comes back up, we have a better ability to be present with what is, and to use our tools of healing, of ascension, right? To master our time and space. So let's keep going. Right, a meat eater to a vegan, right? A meat eater to a vegan. So, I mean, it's very, very simple, and it's vibrational, right? You think about, you're changing your diet. You're all the time going to steakhouses or you're always ordering the hamburger or the whatever. And then all of a sudden you start dating this cute girl and she's like a vegan and you're like, well, I'm going to be a vegan too. Okay, let me check this out. So then you start doing vegan. But then what you realize is that it starts introducing you into all of these amazing new realms, right? Of diet, of health, of alkalinity, of oxygenation, of whatever it might be, of shifting your vibration, shifting your timeline. All of a sudden you're at a health food store. You've never been to a health food store before. And all of a sudden you're like, what is quinoa? What are these crazy, things that people eat when they're not eating steaks, and so it's a new experience. And who knows who you're going to meet at the health food store? Who knows what poster or flyer you're going to see on the wall that's going to take you to a meditation, a sound bath, or something where you're going to meet these cool, collective of people, which can change your whole experience. 4D Fighting Art says, being able to pause when those impulses arise and be the observer allows us to recognize those traumas. Absolutely, brother. Yes. And we're going to get into that realm here in a little bit. So let me tell you, so I have this story, right? There's so timeline shift and frequency match. So these little skulls I've had since 2010. I got them in New Mexico. I have 2 of them and I've worked with them for years. On again, off again, on again, off again. I've even buried them at the vortex. They have guided me to bury them at the vortex where I spin the staff often in the backyard here. And they've been buried amongst the rocks. They've been, there's this whole shamanic journey with these earrings. And I remember, oh no, not these earrings, but with the skulls specifically. And I remember having this epiphany in December where they showed me, they said, take these old earrings, put the skulls in them, like get the wiring, get the thing, like do the crafting and put them, we're ready now. It's like a whole new level of being with you here at this phase, right? And the information, the space they're going to hold for me. So I thought, oh, this is awesome. I find the earrings and then I couldn't find the skulls. And this is last month. And I'm going like, the skulls called me, but now they're nowhere around. Where are they? And I remember thinking and looking and being like, whoa, this is weird. Because like rarely am I called, but I don't find. And so you let it go. You say, okay, whatever, for highest good. What I realized when I meditated it, is as I had to realize like, oh, it's telling me something that's here. It's here now, yet I wasn't here now. I was not a frequency match for the skulls. Even though they're mine, I've had them for years and I work with them and stuff. But there was this thing where they were showing me, they were giving me a glimpse of what was to be in the future, right? From the now, though, which is really, if we're going to go and travel past, present, future, if you're going to voyeur and see, and that's a whole different topic, what is required is to be the ability to be present, to use the present as the gateway to enter the now. And it's from the now that we can voyeur correctly into past and future timelines. And isn't it amazing then? Here I am, I had completely forgotten about it. 4 weeks later, I'm dusting, I'm cleaning, something, and they fall down from above my bed. I guess I had put them, there's some crystals on this little thing up there, and I had forgotten all about them, and they fell to the floor. I was dusting, and I was like, hey, frequency match, here we go. It is time. It is time. Now it is time to create these earrings, to do this thing. So it's just amazing, right? A frequency match. So timeline shifts. This is why we use our thoughts and our words, because we're thinking. It is said over 70,000 thoughts a day. How many times, even if you're not speaking, if you live alone and you don't speak that much, your thoughts are equal to words. And each word holds a frequency, a vibrational resonance, a pattern, which is then embossed into your aura, which is then a calling signal for all like vibrations and frequencies through all time, space, and dimensions. So you're saying like, bring it, whatever it is that you are thinking about, that you are speaking about, especially those things on repeat, right? You are saying, come to me, right? And that's why we break the mold. We rethink, we rewire, we re-speak our experience. Like when I was telling you about how I was always jealous, well, the work was me changing my thoughts about things, me changing the way I thought I see, the way I perceived certain actions and things in my partners. I got to really reframe how I spoke about things to myself in my own mind. And that's when the timeline started to shift. It started to peel apart, and I was able to then have a new experience and not be bound by whatever those things were that had marked me in my past. Healing the mind stuff, rearranging our thoughts about the past, or erasing memory altogether. So remember the spotless mind. You know, that movie, The Spotless Mind, it's like when we forget, I will read the comments here in a moment for Defining Arts. When we forget, when you really forget, and I want to add, when you forgive and you forget, things are not the same. Things are not the same. I remember I wrote an energy letter, which I'll put a link up top here to and YouTube later, but I wrote an energy letter from my higher self to a loved one's higher self, because I had a lot of things I needed to express to them that was challenging me. But I felt that I couldn't speak to them in the third dimension. So I said, well, let my higher self speak to their higher self through the energy letter work. I did the energy letter, and within 48 hours, I remember I wrote it, I put it on the altar. The next day I was guided, I burned it, I let it go, said the prayer, did all that stuff, went to sleep. And then like the next day, I remember waking up and I came into the living room and I was like I stopped. The lighting that was coming in, I had never seen this form of lighting before. It's like everything in the room was the same, but it was different. It was markedly different. And the one thing that kept happening is that all of a sudden the refrigerator was making a noise that it had never made before. And I was like, I'm on a new freaking timeline. Later that day, I'm driving. You ever do this? You're driving, and the Mandela effect is a whole other thing, which we'll have to do a show about sometime. But I'm driving down the road and I'm like, that school was never there before. I've lived here for 5 years, been coming out to where I live here in the desert. There's a sound outside. I might have to close the window. But I've been coming out here my whole life, and I've never seen this school on this street before. And all of a sudden I'm driving, and there's this school. I'm on a new timeline. Whether it's my ability to perceive what was always there, and now I'm just seeing it because now I'm in a different timeline, a different frame of mind, which is governed by the words and the thoughts I speak, and how much of the past I carry into the present. You start to experience and see things that you hadn't seen before, right? Funny, interesting things start to happen. You start to notice you're in different timelines. Forgive and forget. So, going to the point of creation, I want to talk about that. Forgiving and forgetting is really important, specific to time and to timelines. Because again, the grievances, the things that we hold on to for the most part are those timelines that keep us bound. That's the gravity of the grids. That's the gravity, the gravitas of the memory, of the trauma of those parts of time that have marked our path. And it's in the healing of those aspects and the unraveling, the unbraiding of those things that then we begin to see things differently. Yet it's our willingness that makes it so. And there are certain healing practices. There's one that I share, and again, I'll come back and I'll put a link up top later, called Point in Creation. And it's a applied metaphysics energy tool where every time you have a thought that you know is not a thought that is in frequency with who and what and where you wish to establish your truth in now, you get to reformat that. So every time it comes up, like what you were saying, 4D, every time it comes up, and you recognize this thought, you're saying, God, I can never pay my rent. And maybe we just get lazy about that speaking that or thinking that, but it becomes a bit of a mantra, and it becomes this affirmation in our aura, this frequency. Universe doesn't mind. It's like, oh, okay, you're always late with your rent. Let's match that frequentially. Let's create the circumstances in the simulation of your matrix reality to reflect that back to you, because that's what you're affirming. So we're going to give you that. And that's just, we know this, right? Or maybe this is new, but this is how the universe works. And so in changing our mind about how we speak about things, how we see things, even if it's difficult, right, begins to change begins to loosen us from the ties that bound us to the ways things were before. So, point in creation, every time I have this thought, I can never pay my rent on time. First rule, right, is we become conscious. We're going from unconscious to conscious. So every time I have that thought and I recognize it, I'm going to go, I go to the point in creation of that. And what happens is a line of light activates from you out through the grid matrix to the point in creation of where that thought, where you ever picked that thought up from in the first place, through all time, space, and dimensions in this life, and perhaps even beyond this life, as far as it goes, to the root of the system and back again. And it happens like that. So when you get that thought that you don't want to have in your mind anymore, I go to the point in creation of that. Universe beams light instantly, because really light doesn't travel, light is, and it's just your awareness of placing that energy tool, placing that light there, that it does the work. It washes those lines of memory for the highest good of all, in relation to that which will best reflect and resonate with where you are determining your new set point of reality of experience will be at. I pray that makes sense. And again, I'll put a link, or you can look it up on the search bar at my YouTube, Point in Creation. It's a powerful energy tool. The point of it is that I have used this energy tool so much for 20 years now. It's in my book, The Reiki Apprentice. I cannot remember certain things. I have forgotten. I have gone to the point in creation so hardcore in certain areas of my life. I cannot remember things. There's just no memory. There's just no memory. And my grandma's like, you really don't remember that? And I'm like, I can't. She's like, what about the da-da-da? I'm like, I don't. She's like, what about? And no, even my mother, right? There's things where I just don't recall. I don't remember. I don't have the memory of it. I've gone to the point of creation of whatever those aspects. And obviously, maybe those were aspects that I had worked on so hardcore because there were moments of trauma or of indecision, of negativity, of what I had perceived as something that was holding me back. And so in working it out, the whole paradigm for highest good had been released from my memory. And believe me, what I'll tell you is that you don't really have to remember anything at all. You get to the point where you start just channeling. You just start being so present in the now and so trusting that the divine is going to channel through and speak through you. Your higher self is going to speak through you. Your higher self becomes so deeply integrated, you see, is that you really don't have to think you know anything at all, because higher self is the voice for God, is akin to that messenger for God, and it is aligned with the now. It is aligned with love, and it will always lead you in your perfect path, right? It will always lead you. Higher self is like, here's the highest timeline. Higher self is always saying, here's the highest time. Here's the higher choice that's going to keep you in this timeline, right? We know if we're an addict, if we're going through issues of addiction, right? Say it's with beer. We know that there's a certain timeline. If I keep buying that beer and I keep drinking that beer, I'm going to stay in this timeline. If I choose to use my will to not go to the liquor store and to go home and to whatever you do, put on Netflix instead, or read a book, or do your prayers, or whatever it might be, boom, different timeline, right? And this is the root of this major timeline shift that we're in together as a collective, which is really a whole other show. But we hear about the timeline split, which is only about, all categories of lines of time either being, specific and vibrational resonance to love or fear only, love or fear only. And so it's like what we are choosing by way of mind, by way of mouth, is choosing us back. Okay, so let's keep going because there's more. Oh, I wanted to read 4Ds. Okay. LOL, me last week. What's Nochi also met someone awesome at health food store. What's not? You were at the health food store, right? And you're like, what? Because it's like you're in a new timeline. Yes, exactly. Okay, right. So here we go. Why are there so many modalities? Right? Why are there so many healing modalities? We are complex beings. Again, we are complex beings. To heal completely, we must heal on every pixelation of our experience, past lives included. There's a theory I'm putting together for the grid mind science work. And it's that from the moment that we are conceived, right? In the womb, we're a pixel. And every single moment of experience that we have from that first pixel that we become, when the egg begins, right? When the sperm and the ovum come together, that first initial boom, right, that happens, we are light fundamentally, yet we're also a recording system that is cultivating memory, that is storing memory. And for every moment of our existence and experience, imagine it's like a tiny dot, tiny pixel. And again, like at the very beginning of the show, what I was saying is that every one of those pixels is embossed with our perception, with our consciousness. And until we learn how to have our own consciousness, it may be embossed with the beliefs and the conditions that were given by our parents or guardians. And so how we perceive things, right, is going to be reflected back to us again. But it's in these pixels that we get to heal. And this is why we're like, well, okay, I have Reiki, but like I'm also use crystals, and I'm doing past life trauma healing, and I'm doing a full moon ritual, and I'm doing color spectrum therapy for my hip. And I'm doing, there's like all these different aspects. So we get to hit all of these different parts of ourselves with these different modalities. We think about a crystal, and the different crystals are so different, but we think about all the facets, right? If I'm healing this thing about this jealousy, this person that I used to be, right? This girl that needed to heal her inner child so she didn't have to walk in that way anymore. Well, if I just work on one aspect, that'll be great, right? And that's a start. Yet what happens is, remember, have you ever seen like those in India or in Tibet or in China, they have those statues, and sometimes in movies, they'll show like where the statue will have several different heads and the head will turn, or people will have these experiences of the head. It has different faces turning. It's like, oh, you healed this part of your trauma. Oh, click, click. It's like, oh, 2 weeks later, you're like, dang, there's more. Yes, there's more. And so all of these different modalities, the diet, right, the Reiki, the healing, the meditation, all of these things help us to hit it, which is just memory from all of the different fractal angles, so that eventually we've cleared so much to such a degree that we forget. There's a client of mine, and she's tortured by this memory of her ex. Now, they haven't been together for 3 years, but she's like, I want to get him out of my mind. Like she can't stop thinking about him. So there's different practices, right? And we hit it on one level, and it's like it goes away for a bit, and then a boop, boop, it pops up again from a different plane. It's like, oh, this part is about the physical body. It's healing, the way that she had perceived that he was perceiving her physical body. Okay, let's heal that aspect. Oh, there's a part about how he treated you. Okay, let's work on that. There's a part, all these different aspects to get to. And there's different modalities, there's different ways that we can hit it. But ultimately, to forgive, really to forgive, is to forget. Because again, there is no time. Time is a tool. Time is a tool. But time is not the reality with the capital R. Time is a tool in the matrix that we can learn to master, so that we can create the simulation we would have, right? If it's all an illusion, as my A Course in Miracles teacher says, if it's all an illusion, let's make it a good one. If it's all an illusion here in the matrix, it's like, again, we can choose the reality with the small r or the capital R, and learn how to bridge heaven on earth, right? In tandem at the same time. And ultimately what we're doing is we're toggling. This is what I see with the fourth dimensional consciousness in the heart center, and this third dimensional reality with the small r of the matrix, is we're learning how to have one foot in heaven on earth, how to hold space truly and powerfully, courageously in the heart center, and at the same time be in the world. And we're learning to bridge, right, heaven on earth. We're learning to be in the world and not of it, and know and trust in that which is not set to any timeline, and that which is not bound by time. And that's the mystical aspect. So addiction. Oh yeah, the story about chemtrails. So again, timelines. So there's a clip that I've posted here before at some point. And I remember having this experience where I was talking to a brother, and I was saying, yo, I don't see timelines, or pardon me. I was like, I haven't seen chemtrails in like over a year. It was like a year or two where I hadn't seen them. And he's like, are you freaking joking me? And I was like, no, I don't. Like, he started bringing them up, and I was like, oh yeah, those things. Like, I'd completely forgotten about them. While several years before, and I even think it's in it, I think it might be in the end of the book where I meet Crash when I start floating in the isolation flotation tanks in my book, The Reiki Apprentice. He introduced me to chemtrails, and I had never heard about them. And this was in the, I think it was 2004, 2005, something around there. And but I didn't know what they were. I was not on the timeline of knowing what chemtrails were. They were shown to me, and I was like, oh, okay. All of a sudden, I'm on a new timeline, and it's up to me how I decide to digest that. Do I become angry? Do I, what do we do about this? And showing other people. And so we show other people, and then now everyone's like, oh, and now it's like a thing. It's like a hashtag. It's like, oh, chemtrails. Okay. And now everyone knows, right? Gig is up. Everyone knows what's going on for the most part. But in that way, I remember, again, in my book, when you read it, you see this arc, right, of all the polarity, of all the ways that I was co-creating the harsh, traumatic aspects of the matrix by the continuing validation and agreement to those realities being true for me. And so chemtrails was a part of all of this polarized third dimensional matrix aspect that I worked on releasing. I worked on releasing, and I let it go as I healed all these parts of myself and let go of being angry at the man. I let go of being, of going to rallies. And, if God tells me to go, I'll go. Wherever God tells me to go, I'll be there. But there was a part of my life where I was very, very active in raising my fist and, pointing out all the atrocities of the world to everyone at any moment that I had the opportunity. But what is that doing? That's just perpetuating. That's saying, see, the matrix, see, the matrix is real. See, we should live in fear. See, there's something to be against. And what I've realized, and really it's come with A Course in Miracles studies in conjunction with all the other work we've done for the whole of our lives, right? All the pieces come together. I realized that's really not where I want to live. I don't want to be in that. And realizing that if everything is just energy and I can choose my reality, I can choose how I wish to experience it. Well, I no longer wish to live in fear. And there's a lot of fear around chemtrails. There's a lot of fear around everything, right? That's happening. Oh, here's another timeline shift. I'll tell you about a little story right here after this. So I'm talking to my friend and I'm saying, I have not seen chemtrails in a year or two, dude. He can't believe it. And I'm like, it's not, I have no mind. The siren in the background. I have no mind. I don't need to defend chemtrails, nor do I need to attack chemtrails. I just have no mind about it. And by having no mind about it, I'm free. It's not something that's a ticker tape that's continuing in my mind or on my tongue. And so having to be validated by the simulation and be in my view and in my vision as a constant for me to continue to point out. Remember, it's all feed forward feedback loop. Here's Stone the giraffe. Whatever Stone thinks about, speaks about, he's putting into the grid matrix, which is the collective mind. This is our collective consciousness here through all time, space, and dimensions. What he's feeding forward, the grid is going to feed back. It's just a feed forward feedback loop. And that's all we're doing. And that's all we're doing. Frequency match. So as I shifted my thoughts about that stuff, and chemtrails included, and politics and all that stuff, I stopped seeing all that stuff. I just stopped seeing it. Now, interesting, as more and more people then from that conversation with that brother and having that conversation, then I was like, oh, okay, there they are. Okay, you pointed them out. I can see how you can see those now. But the difference is that I still have no mind about it. So you can see then what other people see, but you don't have to have any preference or like or dislike. You're just like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. And then you can go back to not having any mind about it and not having that in your experience. Last week out here in the desert, we've been having some really amazing weather, almost 90 degrees, right? In this winter time. And I was like, I need some vitamin D. I'd been away in Seattle for a couple weeks with some family, very rainy, cloudy, cold, etc. And I'm like, I need some sunshine. I just out of a fluke, I'm on the God phone here. I called one of the local spas. They have hot springs out here where I live in the desert. And for this great place, Reiki energy, when you come out, girl, maybe we'll go sometime, just me and you, $15. You can go to all the different hot pools, different levels, and it's all natural springs. And it's just gorgeous. And you can hang out there all day. They give you towels. It's a thing, right? I'm like, now, granted, we are aware that there's this certain situation happening in the world right now, in the world, not on the earth, two different things, heaven on earth, fourth dimensional consciousness and above and beyond, right? If we're going to talk about actual classifications of dimensions. But we know what's going on here in the matrix. And this is what I'm talking about, timelines, right? In the world, there's a timeline. It's huge and it's smothering everyone. Well, that's my perception, right? It doesn't have to be that polarized, but there's a timeline that's happening, that's being convinced and augmented by media, by every time I turn on the radio. I mean, I love listening to all sorts of music, yet there's so many commercials and things about death, about cremation, about the V and all and the C word and all of these different things that are happening, and be safe, and like as if we're not already safe. And see, this is the big illusion. But this is just all fear-based. And I understand if there's a compromised immune system and we don't really know what's going on and what the heck's with this whole vaccination. There's so many different things to be played out in that regard. Yet depending on where your mind is about it all, you can choose your experience of it. See, but this is mastery. To choose your own experience, despite what 99% of the world is trying to tell you to be afraid of. When you can say, okay, that's nice, I'm going to choose again. I'm going to choose for myself. So I call up the spas like, yes, we're open, $15. And I was like, are you freaking joking me? Because you can't, here where I live, the restaurants, depending on the mayor here in the town where I live, sometimes the restaurants are open on the patio, you can go and eat, and sometimes they lock them down for a couple of weeks or a month, and, gyms are closed and then gyms are open, things like this, right? And I know we're all having these different experiences, and some more. I mean, I talked to my girl in Belfast last week, and I mean, you can't do nothing over there, but that's a whole other it's a whole other experience. But that's also according to her perception, right? So because I remember she said, I really want a tango. And I says, well, girl, tango, there's got to be a speakeasy somewhere where people are freaking tangoing. And if there isn't, maybe you get to start it, So point of the story is that I'm laying in the sun, in the bikini, in the sunshine, and I'm sitting in the natural springs, and there's families and there's people and there's things. There was not one of these around. You know what I'm doing? There was not any of these around at all. It was like I had stepped outside of the twilight zone and into heaven on earth. And I'm laying back and I'm looking around and I'm just chuckling to myself and I'm saying, look at this. We are all of these people here. That maybe there was like 50 people, on all the grounds and looking around. And I'm saying, we are all a frequency match here. We have all decided and agreed that this is our reality. There's no distraction about anything else going on here at all. We are all agreeing that there's nothing to fear, and we are enjoying the sunshine together. And somehow, in this pocket of time space, this timeline of this spa being open when everything else is freaking closed. This is what I'm saying. There's pockets, there's places and spaces and ways. And I know there's so many of us, and we're like, well, I don't like to wear the thing, but I know I have to do it to go into the store. And okay, fine, it's all illusion anyway. Just play it how you play it. Yet outside of polarity, right? We don't have to point to people and say, you're right or you're wrong or this and that. Just everyone making it up as we go in alignment with your highest good. But that was a timeline shift, wasn't it? And the odd is, on the radio, again, the commercials about the V and the C and the death and the blah, 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 and the numbers and all this stuff. Yet here I am pulling up to the spa, and some people might be like, ooh, if they're watching this, go, oh my God, that's so dangerous and you got to be careful. That's your timeline. That's not my timeline, period. Here's the thing, though. You get to be really firm. And whether it's about this current situation that's going on and where you're saying, I am healthy, I trust, my immune system, and I trust God. And I'm being guided, and I'm listening to that guidance moment by moment to show me the way, to show me a way to be heaven on earth, realized in and amongst the matrix, right? But it takes that courage, especially if you're new, to even, think outside of the box and have a new timeline experience. Okay, so those are a few little examples though of how that timeline shift thing happens. I was not in the world. When I was at that spa place with the natural springs, I was not in the world. And actually, I'm very rarely in the world. Where we're meeting right now is beyond the world, right? We're using third dimensional tools of media to do this, but it's very rare. I don't even have those experiences. You see, you stop having those experiences of time. The more you forget, the more you forgive, the more you forget about what you think you know about time, which is past, present, future. And I have more notes. We'll get into it. And I really appreciate everybody hopping on. Oh, there's some new people here. Blessings and welcome. Clearwater Cerron. True Blue. Body Fitness. Oh, Love Soul Spiritual. Thanks, guys, for hopping on. Guys and gals. Dear, would you like to grow up your Instagram profile? This is hardly the place to discuss that. And I appreciate you, but no, thank you. So, okay, time, and I don't mean no thank you to growing my Instagram profile, but I don't appreciate that you're coming on here during a live stream to do business in that way. So thank you, no thank you. Time. Definition from the online. The indefinite, and what does indefinite mean? It means lasting for an unknown length of time. The indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, future, regarded as a whole. Past, present, future, again, is the matrix. So time is defined as the indefinite continued progress of existence, the continued progress of existence and events, past, present, and future, regarded as a whole, right? We think about, the time, the whole time of existence, history, right? Line. What is line defined as? A long, narrow band or mark. And isn't that interesting? Because earlier I was talking about, time marking us. It's those unhealed memories that walk with us, that those are the issues, right? That tangle us up, that where we get stuck in the world, that we get to work through and change and realign our memory about how we see things in order to have a new experience in the now, right? So timeline, when I looked that up, a representation of the passage of time as a line, a chronological arrangement of events in the order of their occurrence. So our work is to take that chronological order of events that had occurred, right? We do this in point and creation work as well, which we talked about. So say, here's the point where you were born. Okay. And here's say every 10 or 5 years of your life in this life so far. Now, like I was saying, I was 13 and this thing happened to me and it really marked my time. And it did something to me where it affected every of my experiences. I was in a certain timeline because I was having a specific direct experience of things in a very specific way, which was in turn bringing that experience to me. This marked my timeline. All of our timelines together create the symphony of this universe. There's a concert going on, right? And it is all of our collective minds, mouths, and thoughts about things that are creating this simulation. Over time, things mark our timeline. When we use that tool, point in creation, again, a line of light comes from cosmos through us, out through all of those timelines, specific to that thought, I can never pay my rent on time. It goes to the point of creation of where we ever decided to have an agreement with that thought, beams that light back into us, into the now, and washes and clears those timelines. And to the degree that we are capable of releasing the past and letting it be reset, then we're going to have a new experience of time, because we understand that those experiences that are unhealed from our past, those become the filters that in turn reflect how we perceive what's happening in the present. And unless we get the present augmented and aligned enough with the root of love, right, we will be in the past, and the past will affect our future. But these are all variables and aspects of time, So how? The quantum organizer. I place love here. So that's another beautiful one. Whenever we run into um, whenever we run into a thought, a word, something that we intend to change for ourselves, you can do the point of creation tool. If that doesn't resonate, I place love here. Love is the quantum organizer, and it will always reorganize and reestablish aspects in alignment with love, with itself. So again, if you have that thought that is reoccurring, that thing that comes up, and you know it's not serving you, you know it's an old thought, it's not something that you want to ride that wave, you don't want to ride that grid of energy to where you would like to go, you know it's not going to take you there, you become realized in that way, you stop. You erase that thought in your mind like an old school board. You can erase it with an old, like, chalkboard eraser, and place love there, whether it's the word love, the feeling of love, the energy of love, however you would see that, and allow that to replace that thought. And for the highest good, love is going to reconfigure that thought in a way that then the next time you think about that thing or that trigger happens that keeps you in that old timeline, your own personal availability to see things differently little by little will be shifted in the way of love, in the way of light. Now, we have our Reiki as well. We can send our Reiki symbols through timelines to create those healings. Change your mind. Be willing to see things different. Lay down your arms for forgiveness. Yeah. From stressed to blessed. So often it's just this reframing of our mind. And we are going to read from A Course in Miracles here in a moment. The point is, time is not real. Time is a tool that we can use to create the correct conditions, to have a profound experience in this matrix. We can create the higher simulation to have exchanges with one another in this place we call the world. Yet beyond this world, we can access the now. And it's by way of learning how to master time and space that we create the correct conditions to even tap the now, to become so relaxed in the present that we are naturally given the right of way and entry into the now, into the nowosphere. I have a little free iBook on, yes, it's on iBook and Kindle, called The Nowosphere, Understanding Your Spiritual Sensitivity, because this stuff can be hardcore. When we start to go in deeply and have that experience of meeting our demons, of meeting our shadows, and we become unraveled, right, in life's experiences, or just as we're awakening and coming into our ascension, we become more sensitive. And how do we hold space for our new born psychic abilities, for this new level of sensitivity? And it's just understanding what we're going through, and new lenses and ways to see things and understand them. So I invite you to do that, to check that little book out for you if you are so guided. So let's go ahead and come into, I pray I've said everything I wanted to say, everything that was guided to say. Okay, so let's finish up here with a little Course in Miracles. So God was offering through the God Phone that we read from A Course in Miracles, from chapter 13, The Function of Time. And now, the reason why you are afraid of this course, and now the reason why you are afraid of this course, A Course in Miracles, should be apparent. For this is a course on love, because it is about you. You have been told that your function in this world is healing, and your function in heaven is creating. When we heal our lives, we are no longer making the world from the I that is within time. Literally, the I, the me, those letters within the word time. We are no longer operating on the horizontal axis of the third dimension. we begin to trip the vertical axis of ascension and have the experience of heaven. And when we create from that place, well, everything through us, when we are aligned in heaven on earth realization, is creation, is the extension of God creating through us, which will always serve the greatest whole, including ourselves. The ego teaches that your function on earth is destruction, and you have no function at all in heaven. It would thus destroy you here and bury you here, leaving you no inheritance except the dust out of which it thinks you were made. As long as it is reasonably satisfied with you, as its reasoning goes, it offers you oblivion. When it becomes overtly savage, it offers you hell. So the function of time, again, think about this world that we live in, and think about these aspects of how past, present, and future are being utilized through the news, through the media, through all the ways that we are that are instilled into us and conditioned into us to perceive the shenanigans of this simulation. If I stop perceiving time, if I stop perceiving I, the ego, if I stop perceiving me, the personalization in time, well, time cannot exist, can it? And what is given the right of way then is the now moment, that mystical now moment, by which has no timeline. It is not rooted in any time, but it is free, it is sovereign. Finding the present. A few pages later. To perceive truly is to be aware of all reality through the awareness of your own. But for this, no illusions can arise to meet your sight, for reality leaves no room for any error. This means that you perceive a brother only as you see him now, in italics. Now. His past has no reality in the present, so you cannot see it. You know, Will sent me a great little blurb on Ram Dass. And these are things that in our spiritual path we'll come across. We know this. If your mother abused you as a child and you carry that timeline, that memory with you, right? That's basically that baggage, those timelines, those memories are going to walk with you wherever you go. And they're going to become filters through which how you perceive and interact, not only perceive, but how you interact and exchange with women or with the world in general, right? Depending on what you feel you have experienced and suffered and gone through. And as long as you hold that person or your mother in that abusive, time frame, in that way that where you are the victim, really. As long as you see them in that way, that is the only way that they can continue to show up for you in your experience. And it's when you forgive, when you heal, when you start to rewrite your internal script and change the way you think and speak about it, that you begin to shift the timeline of your experience. Now, they can continue being that version of themselves, but you are no longer the version of yourself that responded and reacted, right? That was triggered. And for the highest good, to the degree that they are willing and ready and able to meet you on that higher frequency, they will. But this isn't about them, and it's not about changing anyone. This is about us. This is about you, right? Shifting your internal definitions of what time means to you, of your memories, so that you can have an external new experience rooted in the now that is more aligned with the present, at least, so that you can have the gift of the now, so you can gain entryway into that nowosphere. The atmosphere of the nowosphere, it is very different from the world. And this means you perceive your brother only as you see him now. His past has no reality in the present. You cannot see it. So when those people who have hurt you, or those things that have, marked your timeline, when they come into your sphere, into your world, if you continue to feed forward into the grid matrix, those past hurts, those traumas, and those things that they've done you wrong about, right? Those are the things that are going to be illumined. Those are going to feed back to you. All of those feelings, those chemicals, those emotions, those reactions, those realities, we're just going to continue replaying and rerunning those same memory timelines until we decide to change our minds about it, until we decide to change the way we see and we think about things. So if someone has hurt you, you've done your healing and here they are, you have the opportunity to really just see them, to choose, and you can do it, to choose to see them in the now, free of the abuse that they did to you in the past. You set yourself free. You have a new timeline experience of your own sovereignty, of your own freedom, which connects you to a whole new set of characters, a whole new set of scenery. You might even move across the planet. It could change your whole life. You could heal your life. You can heal your life. Your past reactions to him are also not there. Okay, so when your brother or your sister come, they have maybe done you wrong in the past, but you're deciding, your willingness, you're choosing to see things differently and to see them only in the now. Your past reactions to them are not there. And if it is so, and if it is to them that you react, you see but an image of him that you made and cherish instead of him. So what happens is you begin to, as you do this timeline work, and you really begin to heal and change your frame of what you're expressing mentally and through your mouth verbally, you begin to see again where you have projected your own ideas about this person, even if they have done you wrong, even if they did steal money from you, even if they did hurt you or harm you in any way. You see how you are placing that memory into the present moment, and you are beginning to understand then the power that that memory holds, that that timeline holds in keeping you bound to what ultimately is illusion, because it is not in the now and it is not real. It doesn't mean to say it never happened to you. Yet ultimately, A Course in Miracles will say, if it's not love, it actually never really happened. It's a part, my words, then it's a part of the matrix. It's a part of the experience of being here. But in truth, the harm, the trauma, the stuff never actually really happened. And when we forgive deep enough, we come to that realization. And when we keep forgiving and keep forgiving and keep forgiving and eventually forget, right? We might, I remember that I used to have issues with my mother or with my brother or whatever, yet as we heal them, then every time I come into contact, it's the holidays, you get together with the family, you see those family members, you see how you used to see them, but you're also aware, as you begin to master your time and space, how you are choosing consciously to see them in the now, to set yourself free, to set them free. Everyone can have a new timeline now. Not just you, a new timeline for you and you and you and you, and for all who would have it, right? There's no force though. It's all about you shifting the internally first. In your questioning of illusions, ask yourself, if it is really sane to perceive what was as now. If you remember the past as you look upon your brother, you will be unable to perceive the reality that is now. And that basically sums it up. Timelines, they keep us bound, right? So there are timelines that serve you. There's timelines that feel good. Those are all those timelines that are rooted in love, rooted in the now, rooted in health and healing and joy and unity and coherence, right? In the blessing of love. And those timelines that keep us bound, like the Houdini jacket, right? Like straight jacket, where we are just so bound to the ties that bind us, right? This is you, this little stick figure here. And these are all the timelines. Like Pinocchio the puppet. All we're doing with the timelines that keep us bound as the victim, as the hurt individual, as whatever all the things are that are rooted in fear, right? Those are the binding timelines that we can shift. That's why you should care. I'm not telling you really what to do. You don't have to do anything. But I know on one of the tags on the flyer, I said, why should you care? Why should you even care about timelines? Well, you don't have to. You don't have to have any mind about timelines at all. Yet, if there's parts of your life that are holding you back, that trigger you severely, if you have a lot of anger issues, there's powerful addiction, in your life, and you want to make a change, or whatever it might be, those are the timelines. Those are the timelines that you get to work with. And again, there's healing. There's a million modalities. If you just hopped on, you can go back to the beginning and watch. There's so many different ways that we can do this. Yet it is our willingness. It is our willingness to see things differently, to speak things differently, to move in the world in different ways that will co-create those new timelines of experience for us. You will have a timeline shift. And eventually, when the aggregate mean of timelines that you walk with in this life, even including those from past lives, if that's what you believe in, eventually you have accrued so much love, you have healed so much throughout all of those timelines that you walk with, and you've forgiven and you've forgotten so much. There's timelines that actually just fall away. And to the degree then that you are sovereign, that you are free, and those timelines, the aggregate mean of those timelines begin to move out of the tipping point of fear and into the tipping point of love, and you start to bridge heaven on earth. You're still in a body, you're still here having these beautiful exchanges, yet they're all on this higher plane, on this beautiful higher level of exchange that has absolutely nothing to do, it has zero to do with fear. It has zero to do with sickness. It has zero to do, unless it's maybe someone else's and you're guided to be there and share healing or hold space or say a prayer, as you're guided, or if they invite you to do so. But ultimately, time is malleable. Time is a tool, and you can use it to serve your experience here. You can use time to change the timelines of experience you're on, and ultimately master time and space through your thoughts and your words to the degree that your reality changes so much. You shift the tipping point where you are working through to timelines of light and love to such a degree that you are living heaven on earth. And only those people, places, and things that are in frequency with that will come into your domain, like me at the spa last week. Again, no one was wearing this. It was fully open. There was no problem. It was as if I was not in this world, in the matrix, if you will. Yet that had to be a vibrational match. That had to be from within first so that I could have that experience without. And it's all within you, right? We can go to healers, we can do all sorts of work, and yes, yes, yes to all of that. Ultimately, you decide when you're ready to heal, right? You decide. You decide when you come into now. And now is a moment-to-moment experience, which is yours eternally, eternally. Infinite is time. Infinite is past, present, future, eternal. There's no boundaries, there's no beginning and no ending, and that's you. And that's a very different plane of experience. That's where the light body is calibrated. That's where your mystical apprenticeship begins, right? Working and harnessing your chi, your power, your light, healing your life. This is spiritual apprenticeship. When we start to get into the now, into the nowosphere, outside of time and timelines, this is your mystical apprenticeship then. And you're very, very conscious, and you're living outside of time. Remember, the now is not rooted to any timeline. The now is not rooted to any timeline. Isn't that cool? Isn't that a cool thing to think about or just to sit with? The world is great. The world is a beautiful place. And it is even more beautiful as you heal, as you grow. Forget those people that have harmed you. Forgive them. Release them. You release yourself. You release those timelines. You are no longer a vibrational match. You are no longer frequentially conjuring them atomically in this universe. You're resting in the white, in the light, in the love. And love begins to carry you and creates on behalf of you the correct conditions. There's a Reiki symbol, Hanshin in level 2 with Reiki. And it literally translates to no past, no present, no future. The ancients know this stuff. The yogis, they say no thinking, no thinking. Easy to say, maybe not so easy to do, right? Depending, maybe you've been a meditator for a long time and you're like, I got this. I can sit for 5 minutes or for 5 hours or for 5 days and no thoughts. Cool. But in the moment you have a thought, you're in time. The moment you speak a word, you're in time. And so using the power of your thoughts, the power of your words in the most beautiful ways to co-create the timeline you would have, you can change it. You do not have to be a victim. You can change it, and you can start small. You can start small. I'm not sure if there's anything else. I'm so grateful. Thank you for hanging out and for hopping on. I think there's a few new people here today, and I'm so very grateful. Thank you so much. I'm going to be doing a Taurus Tai Chi little workshop tomorrow. If you're interested, go to my link tree at Instagram on my profile and check it out. And subscribe here at YouTube if you're interested in what I share. I've got hundreds of videos all about metaphysics and spirituality. I believe my YouTube link is at my link tree as well, if you want to subscribe and hit the bell and all that good stuff. And also my monthly love letter. I send out a monthly little newsletter. I call it a love letter, and share through that. And if you would be interested, you receive a free copy of my mini book, The Higher Self, Blueprint of Mastery, and we'll be in touch. You can join the community. And again, that link as well is at the link tree at my Instagram profile in the bio. So blessings, everyone. Again, thank you for being here. Next week, we're going to do our 4DT, Ask Me Anything, where I channel your higher self. So if there's a question about anything at all, you can share it with me here in the comments. Okay. So until then, blessings for a beautiful, beautiful day. And thank you again, everyone, for being here. I'm so very grateful for you. Thank you. And thank you, YouTube family. Lots of love.